Hello, my name is Željko Zidarić. I am the founder of the Civic Innovation Incubator. Welcome to the first of a two-part video series on the use of branding for political parties and election campaigns. In this tutorial, I will try to help you understand how important the concept of brand and the process of branding is. The goal of conservative activists is to protect conservatism. The conservative brand stands for the fundamentals of personal liberty and property rights, ensuring a free market and limited government. For our long-term success, we must know how to manage the conservative brand because each one of us affects it. In order to succeed, we need to win short-term objectives, such as winning elections, in order to get the right conservatives representing us in government. What we do during the campaigns, and most importantly in between the campaigns, affects the mood of the people and the conservative reputation and popularity. This video is about generic branding concepts and is a foundation for the second part, which will focus on branding in politics. This video is broken up into 4 parts: an introduction, a look at the concept of brand, the value of brand equity, and the process of branding. There's a lot to learn about branding, and this tutorial is a high-level introduction. Many people that want to run for office do not have a business marketing background and do not even know what they do not know. Different people will find different things interesting, and I hope that this tutorial will stimulate further, deeper research into areas of specific interest. Success in politics is not some weird science. The same principles that bring success in business bring success in politics. The fundamentals of selling a politician are no different than the fundamentals of selling a bar of soap. The only difference is that you feel a lot cleaner after an interaction with a bar of soap. Sorry, I had to throw in some bad humor about politicians. Comparing the keys to success in business and politics. In business, we want people to buy our product rather than someone else's, pay more for our product, buy more of our product, recommend our product to others, and be loyal. Similarly, in politics, we want people to vote for us, buy our vision and services rather than the other politicians, donate time and money, recommend us, and to be loyal. In both, we need to understand the needs and desires of the customer and the voter. We need to show that we will improve their lives and prove why our offering is superior to any other. Branding is an understanding of how people think, assess, decide, and form habits. It's a long-term rather than a short-term process. We understand business-to-consumer and business-to-business marketing, as well as the newer concept of government-to-citizen marketing. Now we will take it one step further into the political space with politician or political party to citizen and voter marketing. While the tactics are different from B2B and B2C, the strategies are virtually the same. Some people do not like the concept of branding, claiming that it, along with marketing, are manipulative. They can be, but are not inherently. Branding is a tool which works because it aligns with human nature. We live in a representative democracy, and every 4 or 5 years we have a need to choose representatives for our government. More often than not, politicians, parties, and campaign managers run each election as if it is a standalone event, and this is a big mistake. Our campaigns should not be run in isolation, either spatially or temporally. We must take into consideration what was done in the past and in other areas. What we do in this campaign will affect the future. What the candidate and campaign does affects the brand equity of the conservative brand. Once we know how to sell soap, we can take what we know and use it to sell politicians and their ideas. In all markets, there are 2 problems we must overcome: clutter and commodity. Clutter is confusion. Too many goods or services trying to catch our attention, making it difficult to make a rational choice. Commodity is sameness. Products have no qualitative differentiation and are interchangeable. We want to be different. We want to be better. We need to stand out to catch the customer's attention. Marketing guru Philip Kotler says, "The art of marketing is the art of brand building. If you are not a brand, you are a commodity. Then price is everything, and the low-cost producer is the only winner." In economics and marketing, product differentiation is the process of distinguishing a product or service from others to make it more attractive to a particular target market. A product that is seen as being different and hopefully better is no longer a commodity. Cheryl Burgess says that a brand is a reason to choose. We can't be successful if we want to serve everyone. We need to find our target market. Our first step in standing out is to carry out a market segmentation, that is, dividing the market into similar types of customers. Once we know who our customers are and we understand their wants and needs, then we can position ourselves as in some way superior that is relevant to our target market. Do not go into a target market if you are not superior in some way. If you go into the market as another Me Too product, you will have no compelling story. You will just waste a lot of time and effort. There are many brands we can learn from. Starbucks has a brand promise which says, "We give you a moment in your day where you can just escape and spoil yourself." By tapping into the emotional psyche of the coffee drinker, they have their customers feeling a connection to the brand. According to some, the coffee at Starbucks is not much different from the coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. But many consumers do not feel the same with a Dunkin' Donuts coffee in their hands. Apple's brand promise is, "We make it easier to love technology so that you can experience the future." Coke helps define Pepsi, traditional classic versus new generation. How can Coke not win when they are the brand of happiness and only they are the real thing so that everyone else is an imitator? Walmart helps define Target, lowest price versus affordable quality. Branding is equal parts science and art. We interact with brands the same way we interact with people. There is no science to interacting with people, we know that. The instant you meet someone, you start making judgments. The same process works with brands. Every interaction is an opportunity to develop your brand and your relationship. The traditional definition of a brand, according to the American Marketing Association, is a name, term, design, symbol, a combination of these, or any other feature that identifies one seller's good or service as distinct from those of others. The concept of brand comes from the need for ranchers to differentiate and identify their cattle and other livestock. A cow is not a cow. Value of a cow could come from the breed of a cow and how it was fed to determine the quality of the meat. Cattle were branded using a hot iron to leave a mark on the hide of the animal. Today, we try to burn our brands into the brains of consumers. According to Philip Kotler, a brand is essentially a seller's promise to deliver a specific set of features, benefits, and services consistently to the buyer. The best brands convey a warranty of quality, but a brand is an even more complex symbol. The original concept, still the foundation of a brand, is based on the consumer and the attributes and the benefits of the product. The newer, more sophisticated concept includes personality and culture based on company values that align with the aspirations of customers. The brand shows your position in the market, both real and aspirational. The old brand concept was based on a left-brain rational view. A brand was a reputation and logo that represents a collection of product attributes and benefits that consumers used when making choice decisions. Familiar brands help people gain an idea of product quality, reduce risks, and save time. While useful, and certainly not wrong, the old model left out of the equation the psychological, social, cultural, and emotional story of consumers and their brands. In the new right-brain emotional view, a commercial brand is an expectation based on a promise built on a set of values and ideas attributes and qualities that a consumer holds in his or her mind. Brand is a relationship based on predictability, based on trust gained from positive experiences with the good or service. Brand management in this new world is much more difficult because it is harder to create and shift emotional positions than rational ones. Ask 12 marketing professionals to define branding, and rest assured you'll get 13 different answers. But one thing we are certain about is that brand is not the product. Interbrand says brand is the identity at the heart of an entity, its very core. Z. Frank says that it's the emotional aftertaste that comes after an experience, even a second-hand one, with a product, service, or company. Heidi Cohen says brands are shorthand marketing messages that create emotional bonds with consumers. Tom Peters says that a brand is a trust mark. It's shorthand. It's a sorting device. Walter Landor says that products are created in the factory, but brands are created in the mind. Jeff Bezos says that your brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. Good brands are those that make people think, feel, and act positively towards your product or service. You want to get people's attention, get them to think about you, trust, and respect you, and then internalize these opinions. Next, you want the customer to think less and feel more. Ultimately, the brand needs to be capable of positively influencing behavior, and that is to select your product from other alternatives. Brands help fight decision fatigue. As options grow, we do not want to keep reassessing our decisions, as this can get exhausting. Once we believe that we have found a brand that aligns with our values and aspirations, we stick with it and we evolve with the brand. We typically think of a brand as the symbols, logos, images, ambassadors, the language, and the jingles, but those items are a part of your identity. They are just the shadow of your brand. The brand is the values of the company and the actions it takes based on those values. If the brand is the promises made, the expectations created, and the experiences provided to the customer, well, that sounds a little bit like reputation. So now, your corporate reputation is a part of your brand. Tony Sia of Zappos knows how to develop a great reputation based on a great customer service. Instead of spending money on advertising, Zappos spends most of their money on improving their customer service and experience. They then let word of mouth do their advertising for them. They do not try to maximize for efficiency, they maximize for experience. Zappos' number one priority is company culture. Sia says that the brand is a lagging indicator of the corporate culture. Zappos is happiness in a box. About 75% of their daily sales are from repeat customers. According to Sia, Zappos is a customer service company that just happens to sell shoes. Anything can be branded: goods, services, places, people, politicians, and political philosophies. Everything has a story. In the brand manager's portfolio, there's a number of different types of brands that a company can leverage. The main brand, being the Bastion brand, is surrounded by a premium brand, a fighter and flanker brand that take on competitors in different ways while minimizing brand damage and brand erosion to the Bastion brand. Richard Branson knows a little bit about leveraging brands. Virgin is Richard Branson, and Richard Branson is Virgin. And Virgin has a lot of brands. They have a brand everything approach. Their brand promise is to make it fun, innovative, and daring. Branson's secret is to use publicity, public relations, and corporate social responsibility, which for him are more powerful tools than traditional advertising. Free advertising is the best advertising. Just make sure that you get on the first page and not the 10th. Now for some brand trivia. In 1876, after the United Kingdom passed the Trademark Registration Act, Bass Ale registered its red triangle and became the first trademarked brand in the world. In addition to being the first trademark, Bass's trailblazing history includes the world's first product placement in its appearance in Edouard Manet's 1882 masterpiece, A Bar at the Folies Bergère. Now that we know the basics of what a brand is, the next step is to look at the concept of brand equity. Like the many definitions of the fuzzy concept of brand, there are also many ways to define brand equity. A few models will be looked at in order to develop a holistic understanding. A simple way of looking at brand equity is that it is the sum of all the goodwill that a brand enjoys from its customers, consumers, and other stakeholders relevant to its market survival. Brand equity means that customers are willing to pay a price premium compared to similar alternatives or to be more loyal, because the brand provides perceived value beyond the actual benefit provided by the product or service. Seth Godin says, if the consumer, whether it's a buyer, a voter, or a donor, doesn't pay a premium, make a selection, or spread the word, then no brand value exists for that customer. From an economist's perspective, brand equity is the power of the brand to shift the consumer demand curve of a product or service. The goal being to achieve a price premium or a market share gain. Positive brand equity shifts the demand curve up or to the right, while negative brand equity shifts the demand curve down or to the left. One of the simplest models is the Brand Equity Index developed by marketing executive Bill Moran, which looks at three factors: effective market share, which is a weighted average representing the sum of a brand's market share in all segments in which it competes; the relative price, which is a ratio and represents the price of goods sold under a given brand divided by the average price of comparable goods in the market; and durability, which is a measure of customer retention or loyalty. It represents the percentage of a brand's customers who will continue to buy goods under that brand in the following year. Young and Rubicam developed the Brand Asset Valuator, a tool to diagnose the power and value of a brand. In using it, the agency surveys customers' perspectives along 4 dimensions: differentiation, the defining characteristics of the brand and its distinctiveness relative to competitors; relevance, the appropriateness and connection of the brand to a given consumer; esteem, consumers' respect for and attraction to the brand; and knowledge, consumers' awareness of the brand and understanding of what it represents. Brandt and Johnson developed a brand equity model, similar in concept to the previous 2 models we looked at, but it looks a little more at the psychological attributes, intangible values, and consumer expectations attached to a product by a consumer. According to Brandt and Johnson, brand equity is the unique set of real and/or perceived distinctions attached to a brand by consumers. Brand equity lives only in the hearts and minds of customers. Kevin Keller, a marketing professor at Tuck's School of Business, developed a brand equity model which is also known as the customer-based brand equity model. The concept behind the brand equity model is simple. In order to build a strong brand, you must shape how consumers think and feel about your product. You have to build the right type of experiences around your brand so that customers have specific positive thoughts, feelings, beliefs, opinions, and perceptions about it. The Blake Project developed the brand insistence model. Awareness is the cornerstone of a strong brand. Is the brand unique in a customer relevant and compelling way? Relevant differentiation is the leading edge indicator of future market share and profitability. Does your brand deliver a good value for the price? Do customers and potential customers perceive your brand to be convenient? Does your brand connect with people at an emotional level? The last model we will look at is the brand equity cycle developed by Sean Duffy. This model looks at the equity each customer has depending on which phase of the brand equity cycle they are in. A brand's audience creates increasingly more brand equity on their journey from inertia into the advocacy loop. The value of each member of the audience varies depending on where they are in the cycle, with advocates being the most valued. You want lots of loyal customers that are your advocates. The more people you have in the retention part of the cycle, the more equity in the brand. The simplest way we can put it is brand equity comes from loyalty. We now understand brand and brand equity. The next step is branding. Branding can be considered to be the brand management process that will generate and maximize brand equity, making the brand a more powerful competitor in the market. Margie Clayman says, branding is the encapsulation of a company's mission statement, objectives, and corporate soul as expressed through the corporate voice and aesthetic. Branding is about psychology. We have learned a lot about consumer decision-making over the last 30 years. One fact that we need to understand is that people do not make rational decisions based on perfect information. Our decisions are based on a mix of rational and irrational processes based on a fraction of the available information, and then we justify our decision after it has been made. Determining the intrinsic worth of a product is based largely on the story behind the product. Branding is about alignment. Branding can also be defined as the process of creating, nurturing, and sustaining a beneficial, mutually rewarding relationship with customers. Branding is the long-term process of aligning what you want the brand to be and the customer's perceptions and opinions of it. Branding is a continuous process rather than a destination due to the changing and dynamic nature of the marketplace. Branding takes the customer along the brand love curve. Customers start as being indifferent. They have no opinion because they're not aware or they are confused. Soon, they become aware, think about it, try it, find it practical, and they like it. After positive experiences, they get attached to it. It fits their lifestyle, they crave it, they love it. Then it becomes beloved. It becomes a part of self-expression. The customer becomes an outspoken fan, and they would never switch. The love curve is similar to the adoption curve that you have probably already seen. It shows that it takes time for new technologies to be adopted and that there's a critical gap between early adopters and the early majority. In management, there's also a similar adoption curve which illustrates that ideas and processes are adopted slower than technology. The probability of mass market adoption and success can be increased through smart branding efforts that turn your innovators and early adopters into beloved fans that become advocates and influencers for your brand. Are you looking at these potential influencers as a short-term revenue opportunity or as a long-term brand development opportunity? Next, we'll look at the Gartner hype cycle. Gartner, an IT advisory firm, developed the 5-phase hype cycle that new technologies go through in their market introduction. The concept is useful for us in brand introductions as well. The way it starts, a technology breakthrough triggers publicity and interest in potential applications. The hype builds up a lot of expectations which are not met due to limits in the technology or technology failures. Disillusionment grows, and there is a market shakeout with weak producers failing and surviving producers improving their products. The innovators at this time are the ones that keep things alive. Soon, second and third generation products appear and they start meeting the expected needs. The early adopters drive the growth. At the plateau of productivity, mainstream adoption starts to take off. The last curve that we look at is the brand lifecycle curve, which shows that there is a requirement for a lot of marketing investment up front, both in product development and market introduction, before the product or service starts to grow and become profitable. It takes time to gain acceptance and profitability. But just because we have reached mass market adoption and have become profitable does not mean that we can cut back on marketing efforts. No, marketing must keep developing the brand because there are now a lot of competitors in this market and customers must be kept happy. Branding is never finished. The brand is not about today. The brand is about years and decades. Now that we understand the high-level concepts, we can look at some basic processes for brand management. The first step is to start looking at the big picture. In many business texts, we see marketing and sales as silos in the organization, each with their own funnel processes. Marketing being interested in demand generation, while sales is interested in closing the deal. Thinking as a brand manager, we need to merge those two funnels because we care about the entire life cycle of the customer. Merging the marketing and sales funnels was just a start. Brand success is more than maximizing short-term profits. We need to think about how to keep and grow customers. We know that it is easier to keep a customer than it is to find a new customer. We all know that problems happen, but what differentiates a great company from a mediocre company is how they fix the problems. How much you care determines customer loyalty. We don't take customers for granted. Think back to Zappos. Once we have loyal customers, we want to upsell, next sell, and cross-sell them. Remember all the Virgin brands? Then we want to turn them into advocates. Fulfilling customers' aspirational needs will hopefully turn them into advocates and influencers, starting a viral loop in our favor. While brand management is growing in importance, it is also getting more difficult. The voice of the consumer is growing in strength. Before the internet, one disgruntled customer was able to influence, maybe 10 contacts. Now, one disgruntled customer can influence thousands. Customer reviews are becoming an ever more important part of the purchase decision process. A study by Nielsen found that people trust their peer recommendations more than any type of advertising. We also know that earned media or publicity is more powerful than bought media. You can either have your customers become ambassadors or saboteurs. We understand the concept of spheres of influence, the definition of influence being the act of affecting the behavior of others. David Armano took the idea one step further and developed the influence ripple model to show how influencers influence one another and then ultimately the general public. The bigger the spheres of influence and the faster the velocity of the ripples, the higher the chance the idea will go viral. Internet bloggers are an ideal example of influence ripples, with ideas spreading from one blogger to the next and then to the general public. Related to influence is persuasion. Robert Cialdini has developed a set of 6 principles of persuasion. While there are hundreds of tactics, they are all based on these principles. The first, commitment and consistency. Ask people to take a stand and make sure that it is in alignment with previous actions. Second, consensus. People look to the actions of others, so we need to show that we have buy-in from others. Reciprocity. The concept of I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. Fourth, scarcity. Communicate that our offer is a scarce commodity and what they stand to lose if they do not take our proposal. Mass appeal is dependent on the following 2. Likability. We want to have people relate to us. People like people that are similar, pay genuine compliments, and cooperate. And finally, authority. People believe in credible, knowledgeable experts. Assure them that we know what we're talking about. Brand equity, advocates, influencers, persuasion, viral loops, and fanboys. Just a few of the requirements, along with a good product, required to jump the gap and gain mass market appeal. Crowdsourcing and crowdfunding take the customer-centric brand building concept to the next level. Crowdsourcing is a darling of the Web 2.0 industry. It harnesses the power of your obsessed customers. Curated crowds will supplant focus groups, be an integral part in publicity efforts, and may even play a role in product development. Remember that brand is about values alignment between what you provide and what the customer desires. So have the customer involved. Crowdfunding is already determining which independent development efforts come to life. Viral loops can be both positive or negative. Think of the case of BlackBerry. They still make great products, but a few influencers created a cascade of negative opinion, public mood shifted, and overnight they were dead in mindshare, even though they were still profitable with more than $1 billion in the bank, but no one wants to invest in a dead concept. Now think of all the Apple fanboys that line up for days in order to be the first to have a slightly upgraded iPhone. We're familiar with the idea that trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair. If it's lost, it's not easily found, and if it is found, it's never the same again. In the same way, it can take 30 years to build a great brand, but only 30 days to knock it down. Now let's get a little bit more tactical. Brand building campaigns work in 3 phases: define, promote, and earn. I can't stress enough how important it is to know your customers, and so I will again use a quote by marketing pioneer Philip Kotler. Marketing management is the art and science of choosing target markets and getting, keeping, and growing customers through creating, delivering, and communicating superior customer value. Marketing campaigns are about the marketing mix, which is about the 4 Ps: developing the right product or service, putting it through the right channels into customer hands at the right price, and promoting it. Marketing campaigns are short-term, months, maybe years. They use a push strategy. The objective is to create awareness and find customers. The multi-channel campaign is tactical and strategic with a focus on benefits. The promotion mix is a number of very short-term tools in the promotion part of the marketing mix. Each marketing campaign will have a number of promotional campaigns. Promotions use a push strategy to stimulate customers to buy. They're tactical, focusing on attributes, awareness, and price. They can use paid advertising or earned media to get the message out. Promotions should never be done in isolation because every promotion is a reminder of the brand. Every promotion activates the trigger for a response to the brand. Every promotion and message must be aligned. The narrative that you tell is the way that you get your message and your information to stick in the mind of the consumer. And the third phase, earning brand equity. Brand management is strategic, years if not decades in duration. It is a values-driven strategic pull strategy using all channels working to define who I am. Our goal is to keep customers loyal and friendly. The brand is the result of all of your marketing programs, all of your promotions. Your marketing programs must be aligned. Your promotions mix must be aligned. Branding is about discipline. Your brand story will come from many directions. When trying to build brand equity, remember that more is not necessarily better. The problem with more is that there's already a lot out there. Consumers are overloaded with information as it is. Smarter is better. A story out of order is nearly impossible to remember, but a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end becomes something we can understand, embrace, and share. Your brand story is like a movie which is made up of a multitude of individual pictures. The order of these images must have a flow. Your brand story is also created from image after image after image, and it too must have a flow. Or I can use the example of a magnet. Magnetic force only shows up if the small magnetic particles are aligned. If they are not aligned, they cancel one another out and there is no magnetic force. But when aligned, you can see a very powerful force. One more time, branding is about discipline, sticking to your long-term story. Promotional campaigns, marketing campaigns, they come and go. Your branding strategy should guide them. Your brand should not be an ad hoc development of your promotions. This concludes the main part of the lecture. If you find branding interesting, I will now spend a few minutes presenting a few more tidbits to add some depth and color. Most business people talk about their market share. How many customers do they have? Brand leaders, on the other hand, focus on mind share because they know that once they have captured mind share, the market share will follow. Strong branding creates awareness, provides authentic value, motivates others to act, and builds long-term customer loyalty based on trust and respect. What people think is important to brand leaders. Earning mind space with your potential customers can increase the value of those future interactions. This is especially important when your product or service is a complex one or a new concept that has yet to garner market demand. We're all familiar with the idea that we are now living in a materialistic consumer culture. It might be a bit crass to say that we are the superficial, but we are starting to define ourselves, communicate who we are by the objects and brands we buy. We define ourselves by our brands. Nike and Coke know this. For 100 years, Coke and Pepsi have been in a brand war. For 100 years, Pepsi's been in second place, the perennial challenger, never to be number one. Just recently, Diet Coke moved into the number 2 position, and Pepsi is now in third. But Coke is not the best product. In the Pepsi Challenge taste test, which started in 1975, Pepsi was chosen as the more popular taste, the better product. Sweeter was better. In response, Coke developed a new sweeter formula and conducted 200,000 taste tests to see how it fared. The results were overwhelming. Not only did it taste better than the original, but people preferred it over Pepsi Cola as well. The new better product, the new Coke, was launched, but that was a branding disaster. Customers were loyal to the real, original Coke. The brand had power. After 3 months, Coke reversed the branding mistake, and the rest is history. Coke is number 1 again. Why? Coke has had a better and more consistent brand story, while Pepsi suffered a few fumbles over the last 30 years. Donald Keough, Coca-Cola president in 1985, explains what happened this way. All the time and money and skill poured into consumer research on the new Coke could not measure or reveal the deep and abiding emotional attachment to the original Coca-Cola felt by so many people, the passion for original Coca-Cola, and that is the word for it, passion. Brand powers even Lady Gaga. How is Lady Gaga one of the most popular musicians in the world? Is she a musician or an entertainer? Yes, she has some talent, but there are far more talented people out there. There are far more attractive entertainers out there. What Lady Gaga has is an interesting brand story. She is being a unique individual with a lot of publicity. Let this be an eye-opener for everyone. Branding is every bit important as talent if you want to make it big. Unless, of course, you're Microsoft, a huge product company that is at the heart of the computer industry. People use Windows because they have to, but Microsoft has no story, no soul. Your brand is what you stand for. It is built on your actions, not your words. The experiences that you deliver, your promise, your commitment. Your brand story will be told far more effectively via earned media than through bought media. In part 2 of this lecture on brands, we will look at how branding concepts can be applied to politics, politicians, and election campaigns.